Okay, welcome everybody. Today I'm going to be going over a case in which we've planned the implant. In this case, we've used ExoPlan, but we could have used a different digital planning software. We could use Blue Sky Bio, and we're bringing that location of the implant into ExoCAD now, and we're going to be designing a temporary crown, a provisional crown, and we're going to be mirroring a single central in order to do that. So that's really what this tutorial is. It's basically focused on tooth mirroring and developing that emergence that's going to help heal and restore the soft tissue architecture of a site. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is sort of the beginning of the ExoCAD screen once you've loaded the meshes, and if you're using ExoPlan, you have also loaded the implant data that you created. Otherwise, we have already loaded the scan body data exported from a different implant planning software. So we'll click next here. I'm not going to start the articulator, so I'm going to click next. All right, so this is just identifying the implant. So if we're doing, I guess one thing to think about is how are we going to like manufacture this? So if we're going to be making an immediate provisional, if we're making it out of all acrylic or printing crown and bridge resin, it's risky to do that with just acrylic. In other words, no tie base. So we have sort of two options here. I'm almost always going to select screw retained for a temporary or a provisional. And we could do it on a tie base, or we could do it direct to implant. If we're making a custom healing abutment, so we're essentially making the same emergence profile as a standard temporary or standard provisional, but we're just sort of lopping off the crown, and we're making a custom healing abutment. At that point, I feel very comfortable going direct to the implant surface with either printed resin or milled PMMA. And I have not seen that fail or unscrew, like any more often than a normal healing abutment might loosen and unscrew. If you are going to mill PMMA, to the platform and use it as a provisional, generally the thickness of acrylic underneath your screw has to be custom changed. And I guess you could either, there's no great way to do that for printing software, but in milling software you can, and you're going to have to work with your vendor, or if you're super smart, you can probably figure that out, but I'm not. So but what we're going to do is we're going to do on a tie base, because I'm going to be using this as a provisional that I want the patient to wear during during healing or after stage 2 or whatever. So on a tie base, it already knows the library, the tie base library that we're using. This is basically just the choice of the height. I'm going to select S-Link, which is a short, and it has a notch built in. This is always a warning that we get. We just say use anyway. And this notch, I'm going to rotate it so it's to the straight lingual. So this allows for altered screw channel. We know our fits. I'm changing that and then clicking next. Okay. Did it just change the alignment of the, I think it did. I think I had to have selected fit first. So let's do that, change that back again with the right fit, and now press next. Okay, good. So this emergence profile isn't as important, but you can just draw a general circle. You don't really have to do this step. So this is not super important to get right. Okay, so you may get, so this is great because it's asking us to mirror the tooth like right away. You may also, like if, for example, you're doing a diagnostic wax up, you may have to start by just doing a library tooth and clicking a mesial surface here, creating a point here, and clicking a distal surface here, creating a point, and that will basically bring in a library tooth. And once you set that, then you would go over here to expert mode. You would activate expert mode, and you would click on copy tooth. And so copy tooth right here. That's what you would do if you wanted a mirror and it wasn't an option for you. So, but it already is, which is great. So I'm just going to click on the tooth that I want to mirror, and notice mirror is highlighted in orange. And we're just going to rotate the round, and you don't try to set it perfect. You just try to place it initially. And then I really want to focus just on two views. So I want to focus on the occlusal view, and I'm going to press Control and rotate this tooth so that it's approximately lining up, right? And then I'm going to look from the facial view and approximately line it up. Bring that down a bit. Okay. It's always good to zoom out, check your alignment. It's good to get your cast aligned. Bring it down to a level bar here on your grid. If you go over here to the side, you can change the cant of the maxilla or the jaw, whatever jaw you're using. Okay, so I want to just kind of get that aligned right. Oops. And then change the cant. Okay, now I can zoom in and I can make sure I can hold both mouse buttons and bring this down and make sure that my tooth, the size of the ledge, is even, that it's coming up the right way. I think this needs to be moved by Control just a little bit and brought down. That looks closer. Now I'm going to come out and look from the occlusal view again, and I want to get my embrasure symmetrical. Middle button resets your rotation point, like that. And also looking from the side. So my cervical area is disappearing first. So I think I need to rotate that out. So I'm going to look from the occlusal, hold Control, and rotate that out a little bit. Okay, that's getting there. It's getting better. Always look from the straight occlusal. You know, doing this number is not really helpful. So just align it to the straight occlusal so you can orient it a little bit easier for yourself. Okay, look from the side. Okay, that's looking better. Oh, love that artifact there in the scan. Probably should trim that. Okay. Perfect. So sometimes we go to make something and we see that maybe this is not the ideal situation. Maybe this space needs to be closed and the patient does not want a diastema. So I guess this is kind of getting into a little bit more like diagnostics, but how might we correct this? So first off, we could literally at this point go right into manufacturing the or designing the temporary. This also might be a good time if digital planning wasn't done before, to maybe go back and say, do we want to close this diastema? Do we want to do a veneer on this tooth? So let's just show like how we would do that. So I'm going to step into expert mode again, and I'm going to freeform scan data. All right, and so we can freeform all of this in yellow. I'm going to go over to Anatomic, paint pull, and I'm going to paint this this central right here. So green is what's going to move, and yellow is the elastic area. I don't want to select the gingiva, and if we did, we could just hold shift and remove that area that we didn't mean to select. Okay, good. All right. And then pull moving parts, we're going to select pull moving parts over here. We're going to turn on full anatomic again. And I'm going to basically just close this gap. It's going to keep the same shape. Of the tooth. It might be a little too much. Okay, and I'm going to press OK. Now I'm going to go back. I pressed OK a little too fast. Let me go back into freeform scan data, and let's just smooth this slightly. Bring it down to strength. Okay, so that's keeping the same proximate shape of his tooth. And now we're going to copy tooth again, and we're going to mirror the same tooth. Replace it, and go through the same kind of process. And we may have identified that did this too much. I might have done this too much. It looks like my contacts are a little invasive, so I may press cancel. Still have that same tooth that we started with from the initial mirror, and now we're going to go into correct jaw freeform scan data again. And we're going to where'd it go? Brush size. Make a similar brush. We're going to kind of open that up again just a little bit. Okay. Go back to free before we close that and do our smoothing again. Oops, undo, smoothing. So hotkeys 2 and 1 can switch between add or remove and smooth and flatten. I like that better anyway. There wasn't that stretch kind of area. All right, press OK. All right, now mirror the tooth again, copy tooth. Mirror is selected. Click on the tooth we want to mirror. And place it, replace it, place it, and replace it. Change the alignment. That's starting to look better. See how we've closed that diastema now? There's still a little bit one there, but I think a little bit of modification will be good. I'll bring this down a bit. Okay, let's now look from the occlusal view. Okay, look from the kind of the side view here. That's really good. I got lucky. I know I'm kind of zoomed in there. That looks kind of, I think we're rotated. See how there it looks good, but here it really looks like it sticks out a lot. Is that normal? Compared to the other side, it's always helpful to do. I guess maybe that is normal. Check from the facial again. Make sure these line angles, this position is lining up. I think that does look good. Okay. I like to zoom out, set kind of a face bow on a line. Oops. Okay. Try to establish a sense of what's vertical, what's flat. Okay, and this is a little lower, so we're going to bring this down. That looks really symmetrical. So I like that. I'm going to press OK. All right, now let's go back into wizard mode. Our tooth placement is good. And now we're going to work on our abutment bottoms. So first thing in advanced mode, a lot of times this profile border, it has a height. I bring that down to 0. So there's no, see what happens when it's not, see this ledge here? See what happens when you bring it down to 0, that ledge goes away. Okay, so basic implant controls, hold shift, double click, all of these buttons get activated. We can add circles or control points by clicking, holding control and clicking on the border. Let's get rid of the scan for a second, and let's just bring these out, and we can bring them up individually, or we can hold shift and kind of bring like a region up, or we can hold shift control and bring all of them up as well. All right, so there we go. Let's bring scan on again, and I'm basically wanting to bring this up to be very close to this cervical margin here that is mirrored in the full anatomic. You can either drag a control point or we could add one. Let's bring that up a little bit. Control, add a point. Might be a little too tight, too close to the adjacent tooth. Let's give the gingiva a little bit room to breathe, right? Good. This can come out. This can come back in. Okay, good. So see how that position is interacting well with the prominence of that tooth. So good, that looks good. This is probably out too far. Let's bring that back in. Okay. And we could also change here, we could also change our screw channel by clicking this area, clickable, draggable. We don't really need to in this instance, but if we wanted to, we could click draggable and we could literally drag the angle and change it. We're going to work on the shape now. I'm going to turn off scan S, and I really like to have an hourglass shape. I think that really well aligns with sort of current understandings of tissue health and maintaining the tissue thickness close to the implant and not over pressing it away. And then I really like this freeform tool. I know a lot of ExoCAD users do. You click on it and now you kind of left click on your mouse and you can bulk out and remove some of those like wrinkle lines on your abutment. And I think it just helps to create a better shape. So that's looking good, I think. And let's go next. Right, so these two parts have joined, and now it's just a matter of smoothing them. So I'll start with a smooth tool. It's a little big. Bring that down. Again, using these. Again, this is kind of a little bit more of a basic tutorial. So using hotkeys like Shift, holding Shift and mouse wheel makes this large and small. Okay. Anatomic tools, cusps. We can bring this in. Don't want to move the tooth or the contacts though, so be careful. Bring that in. We could also go to add and remove. If this was immediate provisional, I would want that well out of the way. You don't want to be even close to contact. This brush type, default, if you want to get a little smaller, the cylinder makes a smaller brush of the same brush size. See the difference there? And let's go up here to look at our scaling. Let's put it in the middle. That creates a little bit more finer of a scale and gives us better detail in our contacts. And we're going to turn on adjacents. And let's look at what we have here. So let's add, number one to add. Let's add a little bit of a contact. Then we're going to smooth that. If you add it from the lingual, that will maintain invisibility from the facial. Again, middle key to reset your view and slash your rotation. This one will be a bit more challenging. First off, let's add here. And then let's bring that up. Sometimes you'll add and then you'll smooth. then you'll add again. Then you'll smooth again. Turn on the scan and let's check. So that's definitely visible from that side. So what that's telling me is what we haven't quite worked out the diagnostic planning on this case. We may need to do just a little bit of mesial composite veneer or addition to this lateral incisor here, so that can be symmetrical. All right, just add a little bit more from the lingual. Good. So I know we can cut intersections. Some of you may be thinking, why don't you just cut intersections? I guess I like to just get it close before I go and do that. Okay, so we could do proximal intersections. We could cut it right here and cut intersections. There we go. Now it creates a perfect 0 millimeter cut. Press next. Screw channel design. I rarely make changes to that ever. And we're done. Our output file is already in our parent folder. And this is the internal shape of the S-link tie base that we were using, that we see. And if we wanted to go back into expert mode, change anything, we could. Otherwise, we press I'm done. It's going to save the project. And we can send this to be printed or milled. All right, thank you.